Welcome to this video tutorial. I want to share with you a banging 30 mark top band answer from Education 2017. So what do you need to do to get a banging top band answer? It is always good to check out the mark scheme, specifically the top band, to see exactly what the examiner wants to see. You need to make sure that you have good knowledge. So you've got sound conceptually detailed knowledge. So it's not always the names rather than the viewpoints, the explanations, and as many sociological words in as possible. Your AO2, make sure this knowledge is applied, and this just simply means link back to the question, or LBTQ for short. So in every paragraph, state why is it relevant to that question that is being asked. And then lastly, analysis and evaluation. This is explicit, it is relevant. This means that it's not bolted on, it is applied. Avoid it being shoved on at the end. Instead, it links to the point that you have already made, and finish off your answer with an appropriate and distinct conclusion. So let's check out the question from Summer 2017 A-Level Paper 1. This question is asking you to examine a range of sociological explanations of the role of education in transmitting ideas and values. Put simply, reading between the lines from the item, this means discussing feminist, Marxist, functionalist, postmodern ideas. You could even mention the new right and neoliberal ideas, and even consider whether the ideas and values are ethnocentric. So let's have a look at a student's answer. This student starts her answer off with a brief introduction. Now, it's always nice to have an introduction to your answers for a number of reasons. One, it'll get you writing, it'll give you something to write down, it will allow you to organise your thoughts, and it'll also allow you to outline the debate. So let's have a look at this student. So they start off with, most sociologists agree that one of the main functions of education is to transmit the ideas and values of wider society. It's clearly from the question. And then what this student does this, however, which is indicating that they are about to evaluate. Looking at these ideas in closer detail, it is apparent that the different perspectives disagree whether it is a positive or negative function. So what I would have liked to have seen is this student giving me a little bit more. So instead of saying most sociologists, you could indicate who you're going to be writing about. So functionalists argue that the ideas and values benefit everybody, compared to a Marxist who would argue it benefits the bourgeoisie or the ruling class, or feminists would argue that it benefits men over women, or whatever. It would just give it a little bit more, but it's always nice to have a clear introduction. It starts your answer off to a positive start. So the main body of this student's answer is quite nice because they have very neat paragraphs which goes through each of the different sociological perspectives in turn. So they start off with feminist in paragraph number 1, they move on to Marxist in paragraph number 2, functionalist in paragraph number 3, and postmodernist in paragraph number 4. A nice way to start a paragraph is to refer to the item, and this student does this in this first sentence when they're making the point. Feminists believe that education transmits patriarchal ideology which benefits men. And then they explain it by suggesting that how school does this through secondary socialisation and socialising pupils to accept their gender roles. They explain with applying an example. So they talk about subject choice as an example to back up that very strong point that they've made. Girls are encouraged to pick subjects that correspond with their expressive roles, so nice use of a key word there, such as hair beauty and home economics, which are all vocational subjects which are seen as second best. Then they start to show analysis by suggesting that boys, on the other hand, are encouraged to take academic subjects such as science and maths. So there's a little bit of analysis there because you're comparing the boys versus the girls. These hold more prestige, parity of esteem, and transmit the ideas that girls are seen as second best. So we've literally so far gone through the point, the students has explained it, they have applied an example, they have then showed some sort of analysis, and now we're going to evaluate. However, this may be criticised by liberal feminists who recognise that there is progress in society, that policies such as Just and Wise have been introduced to encourage girls to participate in traditionally male domains. This is transmitting the idea, there is that cheeky wording for the question, that makes it so relevant and so applied, that makes males and females as equal. Females in school are also policed by the male gaze. So they carries on. She's got more to say about the transmission of patriarchal ideology. Teachers, subjects and students to double standards where some behaviours is accepted when committed by males but not by females, which again is transmitting female inferiority. So we've got a little bit of a double evaluation. A final point is that when the Butler Act was introduced, the tripartite system, girls had to score higher to get into grammar schools. However, this has been replaced by a comprehensive system, which can be seen as being much further, and some would argue that this theory is out of date. Evaluation: now in education, females will achieve better than males. So we've got a nice paragraph there, which is well packed. She's made a few good points. She showed the analysis by comparing the boys to the girls, and she has got some very specific and applied evaluation. The next paragraph, which is about Marxist, this student cleverly starts off the paragraph by critiquing the one before it. Marxists would criticise the feminist notion that school transmits patriarchal ideology. She uses this analysis. Both perspectives are concerned with who benefits from these ideas and values. Cheeky link to the question. As mentioned in the item, Marxists would say it isn't boys that benefit, whereas it's the middle class. And what that student has done there is something quite clever, is that it's logically following on from the previous paragraph, showing some sort of analysis by suggesting that Marxist and feminist are similar in some way, that somebody is benefiting from these ideas and values that are being transmitted, but then it allows her to then explore how they might be different. And she does this in the next part of this paragraph. So through the ideas taught in school, Karl Marx believes that education would reproduce and legitimise class inequality. And she then brings it up to date a little bit more with using Althusser, stating that it does this by being an ideological state apparatus, which forces the working class to be accepting of their inferior status and exploitation. And then she explains this point. Children start school with their own values that are relevant to their class. However, the education system needs to transmit the ideas and values, clear link to the question, of the ruling class to make them passive and submissive workers. Reproduction theory says education grinds the values needed for capitalism. Lots of key words there. And this is where she then applies the hidden curriculum and correspondence theory as argued by Bells and Gintis. So through punishing lateness, truancy and unfinished work, with detention, school instills the values of punctuality and hard work, consistency needed for employability. This is the hidden curriculum. So she's tying in the values that are being transmitted here. The correspondence theory says that education gets students used to the structure of working in a capitalist workforce, authority, working towards a goal, and by normalising these ideas and values in school, they will not rebel in later life. So she's explained this and she's applied some sociological theory to back that up through contemporary evidence of the correspondence theory. Then we've got your evaluation point at the end. Functionalists would criticise this theory because it's of its emphasis on conflict. Durkheim rejects that education is a system of inequality. Now, this is probably going to look quite brief as an evaluation point, but you can already see the way that the student is writing. Because as we go on to the next paragraph, we're going to go into this functionalist argument. So she's going to continue the evaluation in the next part. So as previously mentioned, different sociological perspectives disagree about who benefits from the ideas and values that the school transmits. She is using the wording from the question. She's found something in the item that is suggesting that who's benefiting. So far, she's referring back to what she's talked about. There has been a discussion about they benefit only men and only the middle class. Next brings the functionalist, another sociological viewpoint, into the mix. They believe that they benefit everyone. So this is more of a positive institution compared to the two negative institutions or explanations that she's just talked about previously with feminist and Marxist. Durkheim believed that one of the main functions of education is to transmit societal norms and values to create social solidarity. Lovely use of key words there. He believed that teaching of history, So here's your example. She's applying it to show how it is done. Was particularly important for this function and used America as an example. Places such as America where there's so much diversity, education succeeds in transmitting shared history and giving people something in common. Then we've got the evaluation again. So she starts with evaluation, she ends with it. However, Marxists would criticise these values that they transmit because they are of the ruling class and not of society as a whole. So again, it's relevant to the point that she's made. She then moves on to another functionalist who is my friend Cheeky Parsons, my theoretical friend, not my personal friend, Big TP. He argues that the function of education was to transmit the value of achievement and meritocracy. And she's using the words all the time of linking it to the question. Meritocracy is the idea that if you work hard, you'll achieve. She explains the point. She shows she understands. This is a fair system. It gives everyone the same opportunity to succeed. And then we evaluate. Marxists argue that it's a myth. The working class are made to believe this is an attempt to justify and legitimise existing inequalities, which is upheld by capitalism. This goes directly against the functionalist argument. Despite this, some functionalists do partly agree. Davis and Moore say education needs inequality to ensure that the higher status jobs in society are given to the right people. Overall, some concluding statements. Functionalists believe that values and ideas transmitted benefit everybody. This student enters this final paragraph in the main body of the answer with a lovely starting sentence. Though they have their differences, it can be seen that all these perspectives agree on at least one thing. Education passes on a set of values and ideas. Clearly linking it to the question, however, postmodernists would criticise them all for thinking that these values have changed. Postmodernists argue that we live in a post-Fordist economy where the economy used to need passive workers who accepted exploitation. It now needs to transmit the values that encourage flexibility, adaptation and acquiring of new skills. And she explains it by suggesting that a feature of a postmodern society is technology, which is fast-paced, consistently evolving to keep the workers needing to swap the values of routine and submissiveness. So she's doing a very subtle link back to the Marxist function of a passive worker to those that are willing to learn. Education no longer needs to grind out the values that capitalism needs, and there's the explicit link to Marxism. Though its function has changed, the values and ideas that transmit also needs to change. Very strong, concluding sentence there to that paragraph. Very thoughtful. Okay. Finally, we end with a conclusion. Conclusions are essential in getting that top band for a 30 marker. So overall, different perspectives have different views on the roles of education regarding the transmissions of values and ideas. We know that because she's just gone through them all. And each 3 point puts forward valid arguments that hold some truth about today's education system. So a little bit of a conclusion could be made a little bit better, maybe link back to that positive versus negative function, tie that idea through, continue the theme of it. But the student does have that conclusion there to end her answer off quite nicely. So to summarise, there was an introduction, a main and a conclusion. The structure is consistent all the way through. The skills are balanced throughout. You can tell she was answering the question which was asking about the transmission of ideas and values and the different sociological viewpoints. She clearly does that. The evaluation was relevant, it was applied, it was in the right places. So this student's full answer achieved 26 out of 30, so it was a top band answer. It was sound, it was conceptually detailed, it had a range of relevant material of the role of education in transmitting the ideas and values. It was applied accurately, the analysis and evaluation was there, and it had an appropriate conclusion.